This is Lunenburg Water District Commissioners meeting agenda. Today is September 11th. We'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start off by commenting to Mr. Rogers, how he was in front of the camera blocking my shot during a pledge.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I was paid to do that.
What a nice haircut he has.
Mr. Esposito wasn't here today to yell at me to take my hat off. I was like, oh no! Okay. Let's start off, we're going to review and sign warrants, which I've already looked.
Okay, yeah, we can, we know we have people with limited time, so get right into it.
The second agenda is approve the minutes of August 28th, which we're going to pass on because I was not here for last meeting. And Mr. Esposito was not here today, so we won't be able to do that anyway. Let's get right to it. Review the vote updated proposal from Ty and Bond for PFAS master plan. Yes, Frank.
So in conclusion,
Yeah. So,
I gave you guys copies of the new one
correct.
that just referenced a few things that we talked about at the previous meeting. They took out a few things, but added a few things.
Chrissy, is this different than the one you emailed us? Or
No.
This is
No.
This is like, yeah, the latest version has 86,000 as a total on the fourth page, just to, last page, just to, we're all the same.
we'll sign yours too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess, do we need to have a little background of what we're looking at in front of us?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so this is stuff I think we requested because these were questions that the public had.
Okay.
And this is stuff that we went back and forth on, and we talked with Ty and Bond, and this was I believe, looking for a new source, investigating an intermunicipal connection. The old plan had a water system hydraulic model that would need to be completed per community for the intermunicipal connection, and we decided that that was not a item that we would
Not
support.
necessary at this.
Not necessary at this time. And then we had some O&M costs. People were questioning when we were looking at the last master plan. So they were gonna work on more O&M costs for us. And then the grant application is a no-brainer. That's to apply for money that would pay for a lot of this stuff.
Which you voted in last meeting. to
Right.
approve.
Yeah.
Right, and then they have a report to prepare for us, and they've added a public meeting segment into the new one, which I would agree, because if we move forward with all of this stuff, that we're gonna probably have them here. Correct. For a couple public meetings to review all of these items, so.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Over the past several months, with public feedback, community feedback, about our last proposal, we tried to take the key points that the community felt strongly about or needed maybe some more clarification, and we reached out. And so this is basically some of these key points laid down that Ty and Bond would research. However, you know, it comes obviously with a cost, so we're looking to see, does the community want to spend this money for these items?
Well, yeah, just get the public feedback.
Right. You know,
Yep.
so that's kind of where we.
So, that's why the public's here today.
Yeah, that's why the public's here.
Well, that's why I think you reached out.
I did,
Yeah.
yep.
Can we ask questions about that?
I absolutely.
That's why we're here.
You know, I'd like to have a.
No, that's fine. The first two items that you read off was to find a new site for a well.
Yep.
Yep,
okay?
And,
This has been done time and time again, okay? And, you know, I think I remember it's about an 8 or a 10-year process to get one that's good, that's up to snuff and all of that. Is that roughly in the area? Okay.
Yep.
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 And the other, the second one was what?
Intermunicipal connection evaluation.
I mean, we've done that, you know, and there's no takers. I mean, the city of Fitchburg and the city of Leominster, you know, they don't have any appetite for that. So why would we possibly spend money to go down that road again for the same results?
Duly noted, sir.
Yep.
So I guess what I'm saying is I personally would like you to see what you'd go along with. You know, what you think is a plausible thing, you know?
I'm looking for the public input, and then I will give my take.
Well,
Exactly how
yeah.
you would like it, sir.
Well, would everybody like to go through these line by line, task number through task number, and just hash one out each at a
I
time?
would.
Or
Is there something specific, Mr. Chair, through you, that the public that's here has, if they have specific questions, if we go to those first, and then it might work itself out to where you
Sure.
don't have to
Yeah.
beat on every item.
you know, it's a good idea. Just-
I'd like to ask a question, based on the previous speaker's question. Haven't we provided water to Leominster in the past several years, 8 years, 10 years, somewhere? I remember a discussion at one of the meetings that we had provided water to Leominster, and there was some level of connection, and we could supply water to Leominster because our pressure was higher than Leominster, I think is what the conversation was. So
Right.
that has happened, correct?
Yeah, that was probably 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago.
Okay, and it's because they were in need of the
They
water
were
at the
doing
time?
a water main replacement, and they were having a difficult time getting enough pressure in North Leominster.
So they were willing to accept our water, but what the previous speaker is indicating is they're not willing to provide any water, and that seems funny to me.
It's 100% true. I called, but they had no interest. An emergency thing, like we fed them, it was probably for, I think it was a week, maybe a week.
What kind of quantities?
It was just a 2.5 connection, it wasn't a big connection, it wasn't feeding them a million gallons a day, nothing like if we did an interconnection. I don't even know what depends on what time of year it was, you know, but nothing could be permanent. I mean, so Leominster would not, they already said no to a permanent connection for, to feed us with water. I mean, emergency, and every town would step up and feed us in an
Right,
emergency.
But that's kind of what we're talking about, right? I mean, the redundancy is for an emergency, not because we don't have adequate wells today.
Well, I think this may be a two-phase thing. It has been brought up about versus treating our water if we just bought water from another community. I think this is part of this conversation
Oh, that's
too.
very different, okay,
Okay.
that's very, I was thinking an emergency situation.
I think
thought
No,
that's what this was
an
all
emergency
about.
situation, I think we, you know, like, we would help other communities, they would help us. But it's not a sustainable, long-term sustainable solution.
Right.
Should we have something, and depending upon the emergency, how much they're gonna be able to give us based on our needs. So. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Ms. Pease.
Yes, I think that it would be helpful if we had data for these things. I don't doubt for 1 minute that Mr. McNamara had this conversation and he is accurately relating it to us. I'm sure he's 100% accurately relating it. But if we put these things in emails, and then we can see what was asked for, how much did they say no, are there any opportunities for interconnections? In addition, on the interconnection topic, there was no interconnection specified in this report for Shirley. And it was brought up at meetings that we might investigate the interconnection with Shirley. Now, I have the,
I talked to Shirley.
I know, but I have the Shirley sanitary survey for this year. And in the Shirley sanitary survey, the DEP says on page 53 that Air Water District, which is Shirley, has, the Shirley Water District has possibility to connect with Air Water District and Lunenburg Water District, as both are very close to each other and less than a mile apart. So they're pipes. And then I have the map for the Shirley thing, which you can see that they're the Lunenburg and the Shirley pipes come extremely close together. So I don't doubt, Fran, that you spoke to Shirley and whoever you spoke told you exactly what you're saying. I'm sure that's 100% correct. But if you put things in emails rather than casual phone conversations, then people can see what exactly was asked for, and they may be a little bit more reluctant to just shoot from the hip. Because according to the DEP, Shirley can connect reciprocally with Air and Lunenburg. And I'm sure you can get a copy of this sanitary
Yeah, I
survey.
don't need this.
So,
I mean, you gotta realize that those are not in-depth studies of this. It's not like DEP came in and studied Shirley Water District for 2 months, they probably showed it 2 hours.
I know, but
So
they,
the data you have is
but it
just
should
pushing.
probably be investigated if the DEP is saying that it exists. I mean, you
Well,
know,
I-
one
yeah,
of- one of
same
the
thing.
issues, one of the issues that comes up at times, that is a sticking point for the community, is when people do their own research and they find things that are either dismissed or not investigated. So, if you're looking for feedback, I would recommend that Ty and Bond investigate what is written in the Shirley Sanitary Survey, stating that on page 53 of the Shirley Sanitary Survey, that Shirley can get water back and forth from both Lunenburg and Air, if you're looking for feedback. And I would suggest do that in an email, so there's a written record of all of the conversations that have taken place.
Okay,
Okay,
well, Mr. Chairman, can I,
absolutely.
just real quick. So, it does say that, the district's water distribution system is closely proximity to 3 neighboring public water systems, including, okay, yeah, so we can add Shirley to this, I would think. But what you're saying is, you're okay with spending the $15,000 to do a conceptual study, because we've already taken
19,000.
19,000 to do an intermunicipal connection. We've taken the water system hydraulic model out, because that would add another 24,000 to it. So even if we do this study for the 19,000, we still might not be able to do it after you do the hydraulic modeling.
Yeah, I do think you should do it, because I think the alternative, spending 45 million as the previous initial plan, warrants, that amount of money warrants investigating scientifically, accurately, all of the possible options that exist. And so if you're looking for feedback, one of the pieces of feedback I would give is that, yes, we should investigate all of these interconnections, Leominster, Fitchburg, and Shirley, based on the DEP analysis that Shirley would have a reciprocal agreement with Lunenburg. Or has, not an agreement, has the physical capability with the pipes for a reciprocal agreement.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. So you're in favor of spending $19,000 to have this study done.
Yes,
Okay, you don't realize that it's just a study, and it'll give you,
I think
more than emails, it's gonna give you hard data.
good, I
Okay.
think hard data is excellent.
Okay.
And I think before you spend $45 million, you absolutely should do the studies.
So my only clarification I would add to the way that this is written, because it's written with an interconnection to either of these systems supply to supplement the water district supply or provide on an emergency basis. In my opinion, I think the only requirement we really have is an emergency basis.
Yes,
So the focus should be in an emergency, and whether that changes the numbers or not, I'm not sure. It may very well, but I have never heard us say that we don't have enough water. I have heard us say in this room that there may be times when we don't have enough water in an emergency situation. It will take us days to replace pumps or whatever, heatings or whatever, but we'll be back online.
Could be
It won't be forever.
6 weeks, could be 2 months.
And
Well, number 4 was down for months.
I can't hear you.
Well, number 4 down on Lancaster Ave.
Yeah.
And well, number 2 was struck by lightning, it took It took a long time to get all the parts of that.
Then that's a different redundancy problem, that's not an interconnection problem.
Right.
All right, so
That's
that's
the
what
problem.
the same
You don't
thing
have
happened.
equipment
If the
in
same
place.
thing happens to Keating's and we're down for 4 months, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we're pretty desperate, so. And then,
And that's the problem we have today, right? That's the
well, no,
problem
we
we've
have
been living with for
multiple
10 years.
sources today. We have multiple sources.
Today.
Today, and if with the new PFAS, that's why we have 5 years, and then we don't have that,
We don't have the
we
multiple
don't have
sources
that
of
multiple
this.
sources.
Ms. Speaks.
Yes, I'm not speaking for myself here, I received emails, today from people in the water district. And one gentleman wrote, and I will quote him, I, along with the DEP, disagree with the need for additional redundancy. I'd like to commend the Lunenburg Water District for at least listening to their customers and trying to do the right thing, but none of the sanitary surveys in the past for the Lunenburg Water District indicated a need for additional redundancy. So that is still a concern out there, that we have a hard study with hard data that shows the need for redundancy, for increased redundancy at this point. I mean, there's always, increased redundancy is never a bad thing, and everyone agrees with that, but just how much can the water users afford? So we would want to see hard data that would support a real hardcore need before we fund something like that.
We should probably throw this out then, because it's gonna be a lot more money to get all of that hard data.
So,
I'm just,
all right,
I'm trying to get the sense on, this,
Okay.
these are simple studies.
right, I
And
guess
she's, and the speaker's talking about hard data, what's?
this, hold on. I believe that, like I said, we're still maybe on two different ends of the need spectrum here. There is an emergency need, like, for example, one of our wells stopped working, and for hopefully a definite amount of time, where we foresee a pump went and it should be back online in 2 months. I'm making this up, okay? Can we, could we use water from a neighboring community for that 2-month time frame? And that I understand. Then there is the secondary, which has been argued when we tried to put the Hickory Hills well back online, is that, like, what is the long term of this? Like, if we're not treating any of our water here in the future, is the Lunenburg Water Department simply buying all its water from outside from Lunenburg? Is that what I'm understanding from you, John?
No, you lost me, I'm sorry, I followed you up until the last sentence.
I guess I'm thinking.
What's the last sentence again?
This is short term versus long term.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we need hard data for the long term to financially support that endeavor.
Do you question their veracity?
Excuse me, Mr. Rogers, you were not called on by the chair. We need long-term data, at least I do, and I know the people that I represent and speak to on a regular basis who are saying they want, and if you're saying that as commissioners, which is your job, if you're saying we don't have enough sources for long-term for this water district, and we need more sources, let's have hardcore data to support that, okay? That's something that we are looking for.
Okay, hold on, so I'm just gonna, just so I understand you. You're saying so I'm saying long-term, i.e. in 5 years, our clock will time out and our wells are not in the PFAS acceptable level by the state. So that's what I'm looking at here also, okay? So do we fix the Keating's well, or do we look at buying water from Leominster, for example, forever?
The community, I believe, has communicated with you through Audrey Turkington, that the community would like you to treat Keating's well first and foremost, as soon as possible. If you have pollutants in Keating's well that you feel are a danger, and I believe you got that letter, did you get that letter?
From Bobby?
Yes.
Yes, I apologize, we've been very busy with that.
I assume the
project. We haven't
commissioners have
gone
seen
through-
it?
Yes, and that was one response that I know, because another post went up on Facebook about that, and I think that was one thing, I don't know if you were gonna talk about, that there was a little misunderstanding in that letter, that you can't run
Oh, yeah.
Keating's
You-
and mix it.
Yeah,
That doesn't
you
work.
You can't have a well
That's-
that doesn't meet all the regulations, water quality, and pump that into the system and have it get diluted and become safe water. So all the people on the route where it gets diluted
Yes.
is drinking Yeah, so you can't do that. So
But-
we need to be cautious on making these comments on Facebook or wherever they are until you know the background data. So whoever it is needs to stop that, okay? You have a question, you wanna do that, call DEP and ask them if you can do that. Then find out the correct information, so don't even put it there, cause it leads everybody to believe that, oh, you can do that, I read it on Facebook. Now you can't do that, okay, so we need to get better at this stuff.
And that's a good point, and it's well taken, I'm sure, by everyone here. But nonetheless, that doesn't negate the need for a hardcore scientific study showing what additional redundancy is necessary, how much is necessary, what is necessary, because it's a big ask monetarily for the water users.
I
You
think,
did.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please.
I understand what the chair asked, and you're saying hardcore. What we're doing here is like getting an inspection sticker on your car. It's not gonna tell you if your transmission's gonna blow tomorrow.
It's not a
So,
checkup, it's just
If you wanna know if your transmission's gonna fail tomorrow, that's hardcore. This is not hardcore, as from what I'm gathering from your definition.
So to me, this one would give you basic, like they would call Leominster, Fitchburg, Townsend, and Leominster knows a no, but we can get in writing. Fitchburg was a maybe, they're concerned about it, and then Townsend was a probably a yes, but that would be very difficult, but that's just baseline. Yes, we would do it, and hardcore data is, all right, what are we gonna do inside of Fitchburg's system to get water to Lunenburg?
But I think that's what people were asking for in the last round before your vote on May 16th. They
So
were
they want the
asking,
full-
So they-
what would it cost and what would have to be done to have these connections be active? So that we can evaluate different costs on a factual basis.
So you would have to add in my estimation, you'd have to add back in the water system hydraulic modeling.
Probably so,
You'd
yes.
have to be looking at how their treatment process works and how our treatment process works.
And
And,
the fluorides are.
and I think you would, that's why I said this would need to be thrown out. And you'll be looking at a substantial increase,
Well,
which
and I
we
hope-
have no way of funding a substantial increase right now. We'd have to have a special meeting to fund this hardcore study.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna put back in there, Shirley, you're gonna investigate the interconnection.
From the feedback you gave us tonight, I would love to put Shirley in there, and I would love to change the wording and have two ideas, emergent and supply. because
And
you-
emergency and supply,
Yes, so
and
you
data for
would-
both.
Well, if you want data for both, then again, throw this out and we have to have a special meeting and we're probably gonna be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars for the public to get hard data.
And that would be the decision of the voters. The voters, that should be presented to them, and then if they say no,
Okay.
then they say no. If they say yes, you could present both things. You could say, we're gonna do the sticker plan, as your analogy, or we can get you real data, and here's the cost in the two projects, here's the scope of the two projects. And I just wanna address the well being down. When I was chair of the sewer commission in town, we did a capital plan, so we always had extra pump for every pump station in storage, on hand. Yes, it was a capital investment in the beginning, but by having in storage, on site, one pump, and there were different pumps, they weren't the same pump for every pump station, they were all different. By getting, and because you're right, Mr. McNamara, or Superintendent McNamara, it takes months to get these pumps. So what we did is we were proactive and we allocated money to keep the pumps on site, one of each kind. So if something went down, we could replace it immediately, there would have been none of this lag, and in the long run, that's gonna save money rather than buying money for somewhere else, or saying, well, I need a whole new source, cause if it goes down, it'll take me 3 months to get a pump. Get the pumps now, store them on site.
Ms. Pease,
And that
just
can
one
prevent
second,
that.
this is a valid point, I know Mr. Fortune has
Yes,
a.
go ahead, John.
Just wanna make sure that we're covering anything that you have questions about.
Yeah, sorry. I just had, because I've heard so many different things now, what exactly are you expecting to get from the $19,000? Because that's not clear to me anymore. are they gonna show you where a pipeline would exist? Are they gonna tell you what size the pipe is going to be? If there needs to be a pump in that pipe? What are we
They-
getting for 19,000?
That would be part of the hydraulic stuff.
It was pretty basic. It would be, talk to the surrounding community.
Which you've done, I'm sure.
I've
Good to
done,
pick up
but this
the
is gonna be
phone call.
official
You
where
would
they're
have-
actually gonna put it on paper.
Right.
Where they spoke to so-and-so and they're gonna actually, not from me, cause no one wants to hear from me, but they wanna
Well,
hear
I
from
don't
someone.
mind hearing from you
I don't
if
either.
it's written down and documented.
Okay,
That-
so
I-
that's-
Because you have a ton of knowledge, right? So we understand that.
So I think that's what it'd be. First is just, which of the surrounding communities have the interest in selling us the water? And then what would it take? In the case, okay, town's gonna be 1.5 miles of water main, but you need a pump station.
Does John have a copy?
Fitchburg would be, same kind of thing, you need a certain mile of water main, and you need to probably fix this mile in Fitchburg or something, and need a pump station. No matter which community we speak to, we all need a pump station,
Okay.
because we're all higher pressure than all of them.
John, on
So
page
just pretty
3, there's
basic.
some pretty key points of exactly what it would cover.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I'm honestly, I'm not sure how, and I understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that. But I'm not sure how this, spending $19,000 for Ty and Bond to do this versus spending, I don't know, a few days or a week or whatever for Fran to write this down, document it, run it by them for some, whatever cost it is for them to look at it and to prove it, say, yep, that looks right to us. It seems like a hell of a savings of money to do it that way.
Okay?
I'm just.
I would
again,
agree,
for an
he's,
emergency,
so he's
situation
done
we're
these
talking
things, and in the years that I've been here, we've discussed intermunicipal connections, and in most cases, in an emergent situation, if they could help us, they would help us, but nobody tells you how much they're gonna give you, or how long they can sustain you for, you
Yep.
know? And honestly, I think that's what that 19,000 is gonna do, but we already know it.
Right. So,
But
but this is the two sides of the coin. So like from your end of the public, from what I'm hearing, is like, hey, this seems pretty basic. I think with some, a couple of days of work from the superintendent, we probably can even prepare a document. Leominster will give us water, however, their pressure's at this, their pipe size at this. We can do all that.
We need a pump to be this
But
and.
at the other end of the spectrum, I'm hearing from another group saying, be like, we want a full-fledged this. So this is where this is just coming from the public, questioning some of the decisions that we make. This is where we're trying to come to common ground to be like, what information do you want from us that will satisfy your question about interconnection with town?
So my question was based on the dollar amount, so just to be
Yeah.
clear, not the total thing.
Right.
It was, what are we getting for the $19,000? And everything that was said, again, I am pretty sure Superintendent McNamara could give us that information as well.
I agree.
And
again,
I agree.
documented, down, written, here's where the pipe would go, whatever, it's a 12-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, whatever, right, whatever it is. It just seems like that would be certainly a better spend than the 19 grand.
All right, so,
And if there was more than that that's required, and I think that's
Hold
what
on,
Ms. Pease is
hold on.
talking about, then that would be a more in-depth study.
okay, so I gotta tell you, one of the hurdles or obstacles we've had in the past is presenting information is as we've put this out, it's been questioned or doubted. If Fran says, hey, we can do this, we immediately get feedback and being like, well, is it documented correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So if Fran was to go through and do this, like, would it hold, validity with the public? That's where we're at here.
So,
I know it'll be fine, but
I don't think it would.
that's.
so I'm one of your obstacles, right? So I think if Fran put it together, you ran it by Ty and Bond, somebody signs at the bottom, you spend $1,000 to get their signature,
All right,
whatever, to review
well,
it.
I don't know,
I don't know what
$18,000.
I don't think Ty and Bond would do that personally. They're an engineering firm that's,
Okay.
so
Maybe
this
not.
is their proposal on the line to do that. I think, man, maybe I should being a water engineer. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money that I personally don't think we need to spend because we know all this information that's there, but we're trying to, dot our i's and cross our t's with everybody here. So that's where this originates from.
Okay,
Just a quick question and clarification. Superintendent McNamara, you stated earlier, in 5 years, we're not gonna have, the PFAS is gonna be an issue with this interconnection.
Yeah, well, that's from what I understand, the regulation will take effect for
And-
the PFAS.
But Lunenburg is moving forward with correcting Keating and a pilot study at Lancaster to address the PFAS. correct?
Correct, yes, so
So I don't understand that statement.
well, nothing has been done up yet, so I mean,
Right, but in
that's,
5 years, we'll be in a different situation.
I sure hope so.
And Massachusetts hasn't adopted the EPA regulations.
That is
yet.
correct, so everything's kinda in limbo right now with the
And it
Massachusetts.
states that in 5 years, communities must begin to address.
Yeah.
From what I got, they have to be, there was a deadline date, and it was 5 years.
Uh,
3 years we had to.
And then there was 2 years to start the implementation.
Yes.
So you're concerned that in 5 years, these plants won't be up and operational.
I mean, if things
So we
go
wouldn't
as,
be able to mix Keating well water with Lancaster?
right, correct, if Lancaster wells are exceeding the PFAS, we cannot mix Keating's unless we ran a water main to connect it to and mix them without.
Prior to,
Yeah, so we couldn't distribute that water to any of the residents
until it was mixed.
until it was mixed.
All right.
Can I address John Fortune's before he leaves? I agree with John Fortune's statement as it applies to emergency water supply. I don't think anyone needs hard data. I think we need a general explanation plan, and Superintendent McNamara would be fine, for emergency water backup. Where I think we need hard data is asking for the big bucks for additional redundancy. So I agree with Mr. Fortune, and John, were you speaking of emergency water or new redundancy?
Emergency water.
Yes, and so he's only speaking of emergency water, and I agree with him on that for emergency water. But to ask for the big bucks for additional redundancy, there would need to be some hard data.
Okay, that's not even on the table today.
Correct.
Well, you said that this plan does talk about redundancy. This one that you emailed us, it does talk about adding additional redundancy.
Could we have a definition of the previous speaker's definition of redundancy?
New water sources
Ah,
of any kind,
Oh.
whether they are permanent connections to another town, long-term, not emergency situation. Something that is not an emergency situation,
That-
a long-term permanent buying of water perpetually, not for an emergency
and
period.
how long would that take?
A long-term new water source, treating a contaminated source to bring it back online. Any long-term plan is different, and I think all of our minds,
Okay.
than an emergency plan.
So I will tell you this, that whatever report that went into the fullest of depth to the Miss P standards is never going to be able to tell you on a long-term buying water from a neighboring community, it's never gonna be able to give you an accurate description of what that's gonna cost, because those rates that water provider, it's something we can't control.
And agree,
You know what I mean, so,
So here's what you do, you say, at today's construction costs, at today's buying costs, at today's, employee, you gotta let
I
it
just,
do
I
it,
don't
raise
think
other-
that's it, I
And then
know-
you have, and then you have a comparison based on today's financial situation. Because you are right, the cost of materials changes for the construction and operation and maintenance. Employees' salaries change with inflation. The Leominster will charge higher rates.
Okay, Ms.
So if
Bates,
we have a
That, I understand
comparison.
what you're saying, and I don't mean to cut you off, but what you're asking for is basically like a feel-good number. It's not gonna hold any weight, because we could go through all of this and come up with your asking of like, as of today, with today's rates, et cetera, it would be this. We would spend a substantial amount of money to figure out that number, and that number is good for 6 months,
But
maybe.
hopefully you would figure that number out for all the different options. So we would have, at today's financial situation, this is what A will cost, this is what B will cost, this is what C will cost. Now, those numbers will change, but in comparison to each other, we can do a comparative study under today's
Okay,
conditions.
at what cost do you think the benefit to value there is?
That would be something that the voters would decide at a water district meeting.
I 100% agree with you. Just out of curiosity, what's your number on it?
I don't have a number right now. I would like to see what kind of a report you were going to do. So I would like a scope and sequence for additional redundancy. And we did scope and sequences all the time when I was on the sewer commission for every project that we had. A scope and sequence gives you all that information. It gives you data on the need. It gives you data on how you will address the need. And it gives you relative data on the costs that can be compared at the present time. All will change, but in most likelihood, they will change relative to each other. So they'll probably go up or down by the same amount. So yeah, before spending 45 million, I would want that kind of information.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, and I apologize, I gotta leave.
Getting a haircut.
We've spent, don't think it still looks good. So we've spent $360,000 or about there at this point with tie and bond. What have we received? What have we received back? Do we have data? Do we have information on the costs? I mean, that was all around, you know, the Hickory Hills well, and I think they've already done a study on the Lancaster well. What have we gotten back at this point?
Really, we have not, most of that money did not go to Time Bond, it went to Blue Leaf, the person conducting the pilot test.
Oh, right, okay,
They were the
yeah.
most, so.
But it was through Tie and Bond, or through their contract, wasn't it? No?
I mean, your question being like, we spent 360
Yeah.
grand, what do we get for it?
What are we getting?
Yeah,
What do we
so,
got?
yeah, we actually, we haven't received a whole lot, actually, yet. They're still
They're
going
still
through all the,
working on the-
all the proposal, all the, information obtained.
What will we receive once all that data is compiled and given back to us?
They're gonna know the size of the plants.
So we'll have basically a complete pilot study done for the Hickory Hills well, okay? So
In Lancaster, because we tied those together.
With Lancaster.
Yep. And Keating's is ready to start going again, that's been on, this hardness has been causing a lot of problems. But anyway, so when it gets done, they're gonna know what is needed to treat them, and which would lead to the next large expenses to design the treatment plan.
Right. So I guess my only caution for the water district, and that's just me speaking, is I'm not sure I'd run out and spend any more money until I've gotten something back for the money I've already spent. It seems reasonable that we should see something back, whether it's some portion of it or whatever. When we do, and we use tie and bond to inspect the dam or whatever, you know, we get, and it's very different, I understand that, but we get draft copies of what the whole thing is going to look like, what's gonna be submitted to the state, et cetera. So we have a feel for what it's going to be before we actually get the final. And I would just suggest that the water district do something similar before we spend more money, because you don't know what we're gonna get at this point. You haven't gotten anything back, so you don't actually know.
So, just so I understand, you're saying, let's hold off on this until we get the other data.
Basically, yeah, I'm saying if
Okay.
that's what it takes, I'm not sure if that's exactly what it takes or not, but I'd wanna see something before I continue to spend more money.
But these are questions that the public's asking us now,
Yep, I don't disagree.
and you're saying, let's just push this
I'm
down
saying-
the
no,
road.
I'm not telling you what to do at all, I'm saying as commissioners, one of your public buyers of water is suggesting you get information back before you continue to spend money with this company. I'm sure they're great, I'm sure it's gonna be fine, but you have not received anything back yet, and you spent a lot of money.
Nor has the public received any
Nor have we.
information.
How can you
Right,
give
so-
them something you don't have?
But most of the money spent was not to give information to us, it was to
Do
conduct
the
the
study.
pilot study. So they had to design the pilot test,
No, I
so
understand
that's where we're at.
But I can understand both ends of it. We have spent $360,000, and we don't have a completed pilot study in our hands being like, okay,
This is what it will take.
this is what it will take that we can submit to the state, and we can submit being like, this is how our treatment plant will look, et cetera, et cetera. I understand.
This
Or at
is-
least this is what it's gonna cost,
Sure.
this is what it'll be,
We
this
don't
is
have
the
a
size of
product,
it.
a final product. We have
Correct.
updates, we have
Correct.
information, but we don't have the,
But in the process, these questions evolved.
Correct.
And you're saying sit on these questions for now,
Yes.
and just, let's take our time with this.
Well,
You know,
what I'm
so
saying-
that maybe when I retire, we're gonna take care of PFAS in Lunenburg.
I think it's reasonable to consider where the state is today, which is not for parts per trillion, it's 20, right? The state has not adopted a mandate of 4 parts per trillion. Now, they may or they may not. There's a lot of stuff out there
That's not
that's
true.
showing.
The federal did the 4 parts per trillion, so the
Yeah.
Massachusetts has to meet that.
So the
or
EPA
more.
did it. The EPA did it,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
Yes.
so Massachusetts has to be at 4 parts per trillion or
Or less.
So they can't be less, because you can't measure less.
Right.
4 parts per
They're,
trillion is.
they're actually,
better than
what I'm
measure.
getting now is like 2 point, some are 2.5, 2.7s. So they are getting.
We're arguing about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
four, let's call it
Yeah.
4, you know what I'm saying?
Whatever, the number.
But
There
these
isn't-
questions aren't going away. So why don't we, you know,
Well,
I sometimes,
we're more than a year into this process, and
Yeah.
this may be what you agreed on up front, and that's fine, it's your signatures that are on there, not mine. But, you know, it's been over a year that we've been working on this, and I'm just saying, for me personally, I think we should see something by now. But, you know, and I agree, this is going to be ongoing, and there's gonna be more money spent, right? You know, this is not gonna be the end of it, there's gonna be another one after that, and there's gonna be another one after that. But the public, I think, would like to know what they're getting, and if it's just, if you're saying, hey, look, no, they didn't study, that's all you're ever gonna see, okay, maybe that's good enough.
well, they have communicated with us, I mean, they had some rough numbers for construction costs and stuff, we had for the last.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they have talked about how they're treating, they have talked about different media, that they have talked to us and communicated with us about, plants that are now coming through, the bids that they're putting out on other communities that are ahead of the game and they're already treating PFAS, and they're starting to see those numbers come through, some high, some low, so they have more information. And to the point that the superintendent made, the bulk of the money was for all of the testing.
Yep, to do the
Not
work, yep.
necessarily, I mean, I think they've given us, some good feedback based on that all the money was meant for the actual testing portion.
But usually when you do a test, you do have a final report.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
but they're not done yet.
I've been in
Yeah.
the scientific field, and I've never seen tests done without a written final report.
And we will,
And-
and we will have it.
It
And,
will,
and I
yeah.
think what Mr. Fortune is saying is, we'd like to see that, and see what it
Well,
says.
you'd like to see it.
And I'm sure
I-
it's
I-
what-
I'd love
you
to
know,
see it.
Wait.
And I know,
Yeah.
I understand Commissioner Birch, I get it, you wanna get this going, you wanna do your job, and that's admirable. But there's also something to be said for evaluating the data you get along the way to make midway corrections, to understand financial issues all along the way, not just at the end, one big number. What would need to be done, how much will it cost? What is this alternative, what would need to be done, how much will that one cost? So that the voters can make educated comparisons between the different ways. I'm not talking about emergency. I agree with Mr. Fortune on emergency. I am talking about adding additional redundancy. And to tell you the truth, a lot of the voters do not see the critical need to hurry up and hurry up and hurry up, because the DEP did not address that as such in the many sanitary surveys. So I think that people would like, if they're gonna spend that much money, to get it. Thanks, John.
Yeah, sorry.
So and I think this is what Fran's gonna talk about, I think the sanitary survey is again an inspection sticker. You go into a garage, they hook your car up to a few things, make sure your brakes work, and send you down the road. It is not an in-depth, accurate, it's a quick little inspection that somebody that is not gonna replace your transmission in your car.
That's why we
Is
need
gonna
a
do.
study with hard data showing the need for additional redundancy.
I understand, but you're putting all the weight on that sanitary survey, which is, yes, it is a professional report, but it's a brief little inspectional,
But that
it's
is-
really not,
That's the
you're-
only professional report we have.
That's the only thing,
That's
yes,
the-
correct.
So we need a professional report that would explain the need for redundancy, how much redundancy is needed, what capacity increases do we need. We need data to support that, so that the voters can then understand what they're voting for.
And just, and then if you're agreeing with the previous speaker, Mr. Fortune's, take on that,
He was for emergency only, and I agree
No.
with him, yes,
So,
yes, he was.
are we looking, from that perspective, are we looking at any of this tonight? Are we just gonna wait and let's get our pilot information together and then see what we want to do? Because
Do you want my
from-
opinion?
my urgency is to actually get something accomplished in my tenure as a commissioner. And the more we wait, the less we're gonna get accomplished. I agree with getting all the correct information and then doing it doing the best project you can for everybody financially and for the sources. But I don't agree with waiting.
Okay. I understand that you would like to accomplish your goals, and that's, we all want to accomplish our goals. But I think with this amount of money that we're talking about, it has to not be about people's goals. It has to be about the voters getting sufficient data so that they can make comparisons. I am not speaking of emergency issues. I think a small report that Superintendent McNamara did for short-term emergency issues is fine, and I would encourage you to have a pumps on hand, because it worked like a gem when we did it. So, to answer Mr. Birch's question, yes, I would say wait till you get a little bit more data. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't say to Ty and Bond, that doesn't mean Superintendent McNamara can't start an emergency report for emergency backup. That doesn't mean you can't say to Ty and Bond, we're gonna be looking, we want more data on the need for redundancy. We wanna be able to show the voters, this is why we need, here are the numbers,
Okay, Ms. Beast,
that kind of thing.
I gotta, just so we can kinda keep moving along
Yep.
here, but I think the one big issue that we really haven't really touched on here is that we do need to finalize a solution to treat our water for our customers in Lunenburg within 5 years. I mean,
Yes, No, we don't have to have it treated in 3, we
No,
have
no,
to start.
we have to have the process
We have-
figured out in 3
Plan.
years.
This is not something that we can just kind of just go by the wayside. We are on a time clock to provide our customers with quality water, okay? In accordance with the state. So let's not
But this
lose
is not
the
a
focus
PFAS
on that.
plan, this is a redundancy plan.
I understand, but
So this,
I
I would
think
love to see a
sometimes
PFAS plan for
we
Keatings.
need to think about the
Love it.
bigger goal here also.
I would
okay?
love to see a PFAS treatment
I
plan for
understand you would
Keatings.
like to see this, Ms. Pease. You have made it very clear, okay? We will press on from this,
Okay,
okay? Do you have anything to add, Mr.
I just wanted to add, if the treatment process goes as what's recommended for just treating the Keating well, that sanitary survey is going to say you need to supply redundancy. So then we're kind of right back to where we are now. So if Keating is done.
We have to wait for the survey to come and say
Right,
that.
and if you want, I can discuss about Keating a little bit, because this pilot test
Well-
is really get,
Yeah, I'd love to get just
go ahead, keep.
some of this stuff hammered out. So what we're saying now is what I can kind of gather is, we're gonna let the superintendent talk to neighboring communities about an emergency source. Separate from that, and I believe that's what this $19,000 study is, because I didn't see in the task 5 intermunicipal connection where it said anything about emergency. They were gonna talk to communities and talk about supplying us water on a more permanent basis. So that would, at least, it doesn't go deep into whether we can do it from a engineering standpoint with the hydraulic modeling, but conceptually, will a community be able to supply us with water on a more permanent basis to help us with redundancy? I think that, as much as, I know the emergency part of it, Fran's talked to other communities about, and I was not in favor of this before, because we've gone down this road a million times, but if, for that money, if Ty and Bond would at least give us a conceptual idea, because if we can't even conceptually do it, then why would we dig it any deeper? And that would at least top that off there. I still think some of these things are things that would be the start of the hard data reports, or decide whether we actually need to go to the next level of a
Correct.
hard data report. So that goes back to a little bit of what Mr. Fortune was saying, is let's get some information to decide if we have to dive deeper. So I think that's what a lot of these are. Let's get some information before we dive deeper.
Right.
New source development and expansion, this is mainly about another well.
Looking for another.
I am not in favor of that,
I-
because we have current sources. And we already know it's an 8 to 10 year fix, and it's gonna be, I don't know, $7 to $10 million, and it's gonna need to be treated. So I think we have more pressing issues than looking for a new source.
I think your constituents
Ms. Pease,
would
hold
want
on. Ms.
to see
Chapin,
it.
I'm just summarizing, cause I think we're talking in circles, and I wanna just get out what I think about what we have in front of us right now. I think the Keating well and the O&M costs is very important.
Correct.
I think that, yes, we're gonna have a pilot study, we're gonna have a way that, you know, we can size the plant, but what's it all gonna cost?
Correct.
Because the hard water down there, from some of the new updates that we're gonna get, could be a substantial recurring maintenance cost.
I agree.
We're in trouble down there.
Well, not yet, but we'll let
Yeah,
the
we'll let
superintendent go to that. The contaminant grant application, we have to do it.
Right.
It's $3 grand, let's,
You already did.
Yeah,
we already did, because
right, we already did that.
right. From there, I would say prepare a report that we can have, and as far as the public meetings, I think that's something down the road.
Correct.
So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll take off the 3, because we already voted that, that's coming out of the maintenance, that's done.
Okay, so I'm at,
Well, before we go and start removing stuff, this is submitted for a possible grant, so if we get a grant, we do all of it.
then we do it all.
Yeah.
But if we have to fund it, I'm not in favor of it all.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. But I agree with you, if it's for a grant, not right now, and the grant application's
But
out
is
there.
it something that if you guys decided, I mean, everybody's in agreement, yes, we absolutely wanna move forward with Keatings and figure out the O&M costs and stuff like that, is that worth sitting there and saying, let's pull that one out and vote, or is this like, let's wait, let's submit the grant and we wait more?
I think if we do it,
To what?
if we said we want to move forward and really get more information on Keatings, because that's the one that we really need the information on right now.
Which technically we're not gonna have, because the pilot study's still going on
Right.
anyway, so we can wait.
We can wait,
It hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, cause
Yeah.
DEP, yeah.
so we can wait,
So that's
but
not
if we
something
had
need
to, I'd appropriate the money, and I believe if we got the grant, we would be able to get
Yeah,
that back.
but to appropriate it now, I don't think, my point was, I don't think you need to, cause it's gonna be months before
We're not gonna see it.
you
Okay.
get any data,
I don't
so.
think-
So then, the only thing what we have here right now would be the intermunicipal the evaluation on the intermunicipal connection, non-emergent.
I just want, Ms. Turkington had a question I would like to address.
So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate what you just said, Mr. Bursch. I'm looking at the master plan and what, are there additional things that the community would like to see? And I'd like to piggyback on what Joan has said. The community is really interested in seeing the options, what are the options and the costs, so that they can look at those and make some decisions. There's a couple other potential options I believe the community is interested in. And one would be the cost to Lake Shirley, adding Lake Shirley to the Lancaster site. Sorry, I'm from Pennsylvania, Lancaster site.
Adding Lake
So the
Shirley.
cost for Lake Shirley well site to the Lancaster site for a dual treatment facility.
Oh, so
So
you
developing
say
a
you
whole
wanna
new
develop a
source.
whole new source on Lake Shirley, and then
That is
treat that
an
with
option.
Lancaster.
That is an option, and it's up for question, you know far more than I or the community. But the community's looking for all options for additional water and for treating for PFAS. And if that is an option, what would the cost be for Lake Shirley well site and the Lancaster well site to provide a dual treatment facility?
in order to do that, it's a very good question, and I like you're thinking outside the box. If you developed a site on Lake Shirley, you would have no idea until that site is developed on the cost of treating it. It would all be conceptual. Roughly what it would be if we had a site in that area of Lake Shirley, which is now all of our water is still currently coming out of one basin. Or one aquifer.
Basin. Okay,
Well, one basin, but basically the Catacootamog Basin. So all of your water currently comes from the Catacootamog Basin. So you're gonna tap another pipe into that same basin. If it happens to have the hardness that Keating's has, then it doesn't make sense to treat it on Lancaster Ave. So you wouldn't know, it would all be conceptual. You could not, I don't know what it would cost to do.
I actually, if it could be done, that'd be awesome. I mean, cause we got
But
a
how-
house site on Peninsula on Flat Hill Road, so you could pipe it right out there, cross over our land, we own all the way to Reservoir Road, which is right next to Flat Hill Road. So I mean, it's something that,
But what if the condition of the water from there is hardness factor and not iron and manganese factor, which is what we would be treating more, is what's prominent on Lancaster Ave.
So, to focus in on this, your question, we could come up with a conceptual cost for that. We could.
I thought we did all
We've
this in the
looked
first
into,
presentation.
we've explored everything in the world here, and we could give you just a, not detailed, but a general number of what that would cost, if that would,
I
So-
think that's what this proposal was.
That was
To
a
look
new
at
source
those-
development?
Yes, to look at who owns the land, talk to them, how much will it cost us to purchase that land? And then look at the baseline data of how many miles of main.
Yeah, they talk about Lake Shirley.
okay, I mean, so that is an
So
option.
that's in there.
So what I'm kind of confused
That's
about though
awesome.
is
That's
the
awesome.
first master plan that they did, they kind of.
They touched on
They
this.
touched on all of this in a financially feasible way for the water district. So, but then we kept hearing like they didn't believe, like, oh, you called and you asked about intermunicipal connections and you got the basics, and it was like, listen, this is what we believe the cost is gonna be, and to develop a new source, we believe this is what the cost is gonna be, so everybody scrutinized you guys, and you told you did a horrible presentation by other residents that you didn't dive in deep enough. So this is another dive into this with more money,
A little
but
deeper.
if you want even more hard, so how many master plans do we have to go through? Like, we've already spent some money to sit there, and nobody trusted you guys, nobody trusted you who's been here for 40 years, and nobody trusted the engineers who did their best to present a master plan, and you guys just got totally destroyed that you didn't do your job. So now you guys are coming back saying, all right, we heard you, you guys said we didn't do enough, we're trying to do more, but now they're coming at you saying, well, hold on, don't do it, let's wait and get the results. Okay, well, what do you want? You wanna wait and get the results, or do you want us to actually sit there and say, all right, we've already spent some money for Time Bond and you to make time to make phone calls, but let's spend another $20,000 for Ty and Bond to put in a document that's more true than
Right.
the superintendent's been
more
here for
in-depth.
40 years,
Right.
tells you, I spoke to everybody and they cannot provide water. But if you put it in an email and we spend $20,000, that's different. But at what point are the residents going to sit there and say, okay, we've now spent another $100,000 and you're telling us the same thing? Are you gonna believe us then, or are we gonna then have to spend another $200,000 to really do a hydraulic model on this and prove it?
That's what I'm trying to
So
wrap my head around.
I'm just, it's very frustrating because you guys now are coming back because this is what all the residents said. We want more information. You two and Ty and Bond put on a horrible presentation and you did not do enough information. So now you're trying to do this and you're getting scrutinized for trying to listen to the residents. I'm very confused on which way. I don't envy you guys, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I needed to get this out because
Right.
this is very frustrating because you were being told a very different thing in all those public meetings that we were told that you guys, why not develop a new source? Well, here's a technical number. We're
Right.
telling you from our years of experience and professional opinions, but nobody believed it. So how much money does the water district, not the water district, how much money do the residents need to spend for proof that these professionals know what they're talking about?
I agree, you know, and it's a tough job sitting in the
It
seat,
is.
I'll
I
tell you
know.
this right now.
I know.
I mean, our goal here is to provide all the correct information that we can to residents. However, sometimes, like with this Lake Shirley, looking at that, which we have, I will just be bluntly honest with you. We have about a $15 million resource sitting down on Hickory Hills that would do what this would do. So I would be really kinda not too excited to go develop a new site when we have a DEP approved well, proven that it works well, with the PFAS treatment already drawn up for it. I don't think it's the right thing to start looking elsewhere when we
Already have
we
a.
have one. So,
I would think that would depend on the cost. If the cost to open Hickory Hills well versus the cost to use the Lake Shirley, if we could see those two
I
costs.
can tell you that it's not even close. We already have everything, infrastructure in place there. To go develop a new site, to get all the permits, to put a well in, a new facility, and a treatment plant, it's gonna be it's a lot of money. I can't even wanna come up with a number for you, but I mean, geez, $25 million plus, I don't know, I
It
mean,
can't be done in a timeframe.
it can't be done, it might even be more than that, I don't even wanna say a number, but I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be a heck of a lot more than what we already have in there. That's what I can tell you, I mean, I think it just, anybody could kinda look and be like, oh, you have one, or you wanna put a brand new one in, so.
But that's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen, it's gonna take 10 years to do it, so I mean, I appreciate your question, and I understand where the residents, where their question is like that.
I applaud the thought process.
I do
And
too.
I definitely, I think that Ms. Turkington has a good idea. I do agree with you that if we did look at these things before, and the time frame and the cost of development of a new source, when you already had an existing source, was gonna be far more than just treating the existing source that you have. But I do like the idea, and I know that Fran always wants more sources, so.
I'd love 50 of them.
Yeah.
Just sip water out everywhere.
Right, yeah. So,
Did you have didn't you have a line items of, that you said the residents?
I did, but I'd like to see
I
what Jen
I
says.
wanna say that no one thinks you are horrible, and
And then they came in and told us.
no, and I think that that's a misrepresentation. Sometimes when you're working hard on a job and people don't agree with the report, the product, it's easy to take it personal. No one that I talk to thinks you're horrible.
No,
You're
I was
not-
just speaking to
you're
Dave
not-
McDonald when he came in and told the
Well,
commissioners
we're not
that
gonna
he
talk
did.
about names, we really shouldn't
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
But I just wanna say, I don't
This
think.
is America.
Hold on.
Course
Hey,
they
hey,
can do
stop,
that.
Dave.
One at a
I was
time.
just
You
speaking-
one at a
Tell me,
time.
Hey,
One at a
stop,
time.
stop.
Hey, hey,
I was just, Ms. Pease, I was just speaking to a previous commissioners meeting, came in and told the commissioners
I'm-
and everybody that
Okay,
they did
listen.
a horrible
But
job.
can I finish?
Hold on, hey, whoa,
I
hey,
was
whoa, am I in
talking
charge,
and
am I
you
in charge
interrupted.
here?
Yeah, but
I
you
think I am,
interrupted.
so listen, I'm just I wanna keep this thing progressively moving forward. Thank you for your comment, I understand
You're
what
not
you're saying,
horrible.
okay?
No
Thanks,
one else
Ms.
sitting in
Banks.
this
Okay.
room is horrible.
Thanks, that means a lot coming from you, I gotta tell you. Pressing forward, because
But I
we-
wasn't done with my sentence.
Well, can
Quickly.
you've had a lot of time tonight, I'll just let you.
Superintendent McNamara's face lit up, and he said that would be awesome when Ms. Turkington made her suggestion. He liked it.
We all
So-
love it.
we all love it,
We
but
all-
it's not
it's
fiscally
not-
responsible.
It's
Well,
not financially
People need to
feasible.
see that in hard numbers, they
Yeah.
need to see that.
But
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
but-
that, but I agree that, hey, this is a wonderful site, there's two of them on Lake Shirley.
Right.
And, one is much farther away, so it'd be much more expensive, but in any case, somewhere it would be great, somewhere down the road, 20 years down the road, no matter what's
Sure.
online for Lunenburg, we're gonna be looking at another source.
I agree.
We don't have adequate supply to meet, 50 years down the road.
Correct.
So we're looking at more sources down the road. But anyway, that one would be great.
I-
So, but I think for the people to understand, I think we do have to do the baseline data. Hey, this is what's gonna cost, and just, and get the information, and then they can look and say, yeah, that's a great idea, but let's
Can-
postpone that
Didn't we
until
do
down the
that?
road.
Can we maybe from
Maybe
hard
that.
data, change that to baseline data? So it's still data, or how about data? Because the,
As long as it's not opinion, as long as it's factual.
Well, I mean, so if you
Right.
look at this, but even in the Time Bond's initial report on the Hickory Hills presentation, which was given multiple times, they looked into, and it was given in his presentation, of how looking at another source was not a financial,
Opportunity.
viable thing to do at the time, okay? It's in the report. So, this is where, like, I'm kind of with Chrissy, like, we can keep batting this tennis ball back and forth, but it's like, no matter where it lands, it's the same thing. It's not a viable option financially right now. And if you need to see, this one's gonna cost $5 million, this is gonna cost $65 million, well, we're gonna keep spending money that is the same answer. Maybe not as in depth, but the same data is there. It's just not all Microsoft, it's a no, it doesn't make sense financially right now. So this is where I'm apprehensive on dumping money at this, when we already kinda know this stuff. And I want to, I want the public to have as much knowledge as possible. However, us sitting on this side of the board, we have a business to run here. And I need to make sure that we're being very fiscally responsible, fiduciary responsibility, as they would say, on how we allocate this money. Now, if we got a grant, and this was pushed by the state, like, we would like you to do this, absolutely, I would love to see all this information. But I don't think it's fair for me to rely on the water customers that don't really, want to basically raise their bill to start paying for all this stuff. We don't have the money to do this. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I would like to see the data we get from some of the other stuff. I agree, these are all very good ideas, and I would like to see it, but I just can't see throwing money at it right now. I can't. And that's where I'm at.
what's the time frame on the grant application and the award for this?
I think it was rotating, I think as they applied.
Yeah, so.
I don't think it was a long term, I think it was like a month.
So we can sit on this for a month and see if our grant gets approved.
Yes,
And then just vote on doing it all, and this whole conversation we have is really, we didn't need to have.
so,
Moot.
but
Is it moot or a moot point?
Move.
Moot.
I believe we gave Time Bond the authority to
Yes,
start.
we did it the last
proceeding
one.
with it.
And he has the time frame in there from September to October, so I think they left here knowing you guys voted it, they were here. They're starting, I can check in with Lou and let him know.
They're starting on all of
No,
this?
no, just the grant.
The grant,
The
yes.
only thing we
Yes.
voted on was the grant,
Right.
so I believe they were immediately getting to that.
So, I guess I've changed my opinion, Mr. Chair, and I would probably just wait on the grant application, because if we got the
To see
grant,
what
we
we
just
get
do it all.
However,
But this was still good, because,
Absolutely,
if
yes.
we get the grant, maybe we don't spend this money here, we
can
redirect
focus.
it to focus on
Right.
more specific data, on certain things.
And I would see if they've actually applied for the grant fully yet, and see if maybe there aren't a couple things that we were discussing tonight that might need to be added
We
into
could
this.
expand on.
They usually send it, like she was saying, they usually send us, drafts.
So if we
Obviously,
didn't- if-
before
if-
anything goes to DEP,
So if we
everything
didn't get the
comes
grant,
through us.
with what we've had tonight, talking about the difference between an intermunicipal connection for supply versus an intermunicipal connection for emergency purposes, because depending upon, how would we want to develop a better system than we'd have to do it today, to do an emergency connection? Or would the way we would do it today be sufficient? Or for an emergency connection, you stated we're gonna need a pump. So do we need to buy a portable pump to have
We
in
do.
the garage for an emergency?
Emergency one,
Right,
either
so
we
there-
buy a pump or we.
There's a little more, so I think that adding the intermunicipal connection evaluation for supply and or management or emergency would probably be something that we should do.
So are you thinking you want to expand this proposal to?
I'm thinking if we're
include more
applying for the,
grant?
if we're applying for a grant and there is certain things that came up tonight, we should probably try to put them in.
So do you wanna go, okay,
Like add Shirley into it, add emergency connection to it. Is that gonna change what they can do in their report?
okay, Emergency
And the
connection. And
needs,
like a
and
sustainable
then I'm
use.
assuming in the intermunicipal connection, they're gonna talk about, well, you gotta put a mile of
Versus-
main here or
yeah,
whatever, and then you
Okay.
have to have you know, you need a pump, because in all applications, we would probably need a pump.
okay.
And that would give us a better breakdown on what that would be.
Would you include Shirley in that?
I
Mr.
did.
Sarbanes,
Yes,
you
okay.
had a question, sir?
I think, I agree with Mr. Birch that we should inflate this, get as much information, apply for the grant, and then make decisions on how to spend that money. So I think it's been already answered. I just wanted to ask another question. We see the Keating well in here, but what about the Lancaster Ave by itself? Or is the only option you're considering is Lancaster Ave tied with Hickory Hills?
For O and M?
Right, I mean, Lancaster, you've got the pilot study going, or it's.
I would imagine though.
No, it is, I questioned that, cause we talked about it at the last meeting, I don't know if you heard the last one when Time Bond was here. Remember we had said, oh, Keating's is on here, and we said, well, what about Lancaster and Hickory Hills doing the full O and M? And he said that was, part of his report on task 8, prepare report. Under task, updates will include operation and maintenance costs for Hickory Hills Lancaster well.
And what about just Lancaster by itself? If the community says, we don't wanna tie Hickory Hills in, Lancaster is one of our sources of
Well,
water.
I guess that would be kinda like what you talked about, is it worth,
Uh,
maybe
we-
that's where a whole
This-
nother idea,
this is where it
is it worth it?
And that was a big
Engineers-
question, what does Lancaster have for PFAS, and what would it cost just to do Lancaster? And there was information in the original master plan, and then it was amended to bring in Hickory Hills.
Correct.
So what about having, when you look at all
Just
the
that.
options, what is the PFAS at Lancaster? Because we still don't know, we've talked back and forth, how do you measure it, how do you mix it? And then what would it cost just to build Lancaster?
I agree with you on that, because that's part of my approach on this whole thing, is taking each site individually,
Right,
and then there would be a merge
then we can play with ideas.
concept. We already know what the merge concept is, but we take it alone. And I believe at our last meeting with Ty and Bond, we discussed it, and we, you know, still need to get the data out there, but it didn't seem like it was, a financially responsible option, but I
Just-
agree,
It's an
we get the
option
data.
to put in
So,
the column.
just to kind of put this all into perspective, we did a lot of this analyzing, et cetera, long ago when we came up with our last proposal, okay? At the time, and I still feel this way, putting a treatment plant on Lancaster Ave alone, didn't really make much sense because of the cost of the treatment plant versus what the Lancaster
quantity.
Ave, the quantity of water produces, okay? So, I guess what you might say is publicly, maybe we didn't put this out there enough, but we jumped around and got to the end of the story, sort of being like, this makes the most sense as far as the hydraulic layout of the Lunenburg water system, is that's where we came to that proposal. Now, I understand that that was not accepted by the public, they did not vote for that, they did not want that. So now we will go back and basically put all the pieces back into place that we just did before, and we can show you. But, just so that you have the understanding, the water quality samples, it made the most sense to do what we had proposed last time.
I guess my concern is, we're looking at an additional $14,000 to get that data for Keating. So are we gonna need to spend $14,000 to get that data on Lancaster? I I mean, we've done master plans,
I
we
think
get the pilots, that's
So-
where I'm a
so
little
I
confused,
guess-
what did
so
we get for our money?
So this, I believe the Keating's well water treatment O and M costs, so that was a big question that came up on the last time, is like, does it cost $1 million a year to maintain this thing, or $100,000 a year to
And
maintain? And we did not have hard data answers for that,
Right.
so we asked Time Bond to give us some hard data answers for this.
So
it's treatment.
to get that data, typically the pilot test is done and the treatment plan is designed.
Correct.
So you know how many filters, you know everything, then you can get accurate
Forecast what.
maintenance
what the
costs.
needs- Right.
We're kinda
We're not
trying
there
to
yet.
figure it out
because
before
we-
we even get there.
Right, so it was just hold on, because I want this to be known, because we kinda got, hammered on this one last time, you don't know what's gonna cost. We didn't know what it was gonna cost because we did not have the final layout where you're gonna have 3 cylinders with this media in it, and it's this and this and this. That information was not available to us at that time. It's still not available to us right today. When we get this report, we will have this information.
We don't have that information for Keating now, because the pilot study's not done,
Correct.
correct? But this schedule says they're gonna start gathering that information September, October. So that's why I'm confused too.
So-
If we need all of that pilot study data to get that final number,
Yep,
how can we do that with the Keating well today? How's Tag Bog gonna do that?
that's a great
And
question.
then, right,
You're right, I don't.
and then are we gonna need it for Lancaster and all the different things we've already talked about? That was my concern.
So, and I understand what you're saying, like, hey, you're kinda putting the cart before the horse here, but,
$14,000 cart.
But I think this was kind of, when we started working on some of this DEP stuff about Keating's just started kinda coming in this past month or so, right?
Yeah, they've been fighting back and forth.
Yeah.
They keep-
So I think if you look in here, they were hoping that pilot test was gonna be
And
going
if we're
and
gonna
getting
wait
close
for
to done.
information on the grant before we make final decisions, we
Right.
also have more time.
Yeah, no, I know, so all I meant was that if you look at this, I think when they first started with the proposal, I think they were hopeful that the Keating's pilot study
true.
was gonna be like
Further along.
a
Yeah.
lot further along, and then now.
We have run into some issues
Yeah.
with the pilots due to the water there, but.
So yes, their timeline, I think, was off.
Which goes to Mr. Fortune's earlier comment that maybe we should just slow it down till we get the data.
I will definitely.
Doesn't hurt. But if we get the grant.
If we get the grant, then again, we don't have to slow
We
anything
have the
down.
grant application in, so.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that we should take more public input as it comes in. Let's get this grant application in, and we can revisit this, maybe with some finer details that we've heard from the public tonight in a month, and see where we're at.
I like it.
And reach out to Time Bond and see if they can kinda add those few things
Sure.
to
Yes.
the
Yep.
grant
Yeah.
application.
From what we've
Now I
Like
think
surely,
we've hammered-
the
yeah.
emergency versus long-term,
And
and
sure,
then redundancy.
and surely as a community for the
Yep, yep, Shirley connection, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know, we were talking to Shirley all the time, well, a month ago,
Yeah.
we call him constantly, so,
Yeah.
I talk to him quite a bit. And,
Okay.
I can shoot him an email and get it back.
yeah, we'll start a
That
whole
way
report for it
we
and
can
stuff,
pass
but,
it.
and then did we want to add something in there? I know a big focus that I heard was, why do we need redundancy? And I know, like I had expressed earlier, the superintendent pulled a lot of that data, before our last meeting and showed the residents over the years how much Lunenburg has grown, but nobody. Do we want a professional to put that data that the superintendent pulled together
I
into
think-
something so that residents can see that? Do we want that added in as the grant application?
I think that, why not add something in there
Okay.
about supply, need, redundancy, see if they can see if they can come up with
Data.
I would love to
data,
see Time Bond.
because they know what DEP's expecting, and
Okay.
they know what DEP regs are.
Knowing what sources
so
we
forth.
have in town, what would, I would, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, see if they can add that, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Turkington.
I have two things. First of all, we've been talking about other options, because options is critical. So is there an option for well number 3 that was taken off due to contamination? Is that a well that is worth looking at? what's the contamination, how can it be fixed, what's the PFAS issue, is it worth reviewing that?
I'm gonna turn that to you, Frank.
It actually was shut down a couple years before I started working here. It had bacteria problems, iron and manganese were the big concern, and the water had a yellow tint to it.
Yeah.
So no one in Lunenburg was a fan of chlorine, so it kind of got pushed aside. Well number 2 has the same exact issues. That's why we have it a very limited flow capability. I mean, it can actually flow a lot of water, but the water quality goes bad. So I would imagine it possibly could come into put back online. It's not a high producing well.
Right.
I think it was 200 gallons a minute or less.
Yeah.
So I mean, but it was.
The reality of the matter is the Lancaster Ave well site is not great by any means. It's getting us by, it's okay, but like,
It's the.
I would rather go explore putting something on Lake Shirley than try to ever doctor up or do anything on Lancaster. It's just, it's not really the greatest well site. They're not high producing wells.
They're very shallow.
But yeah.
Well number 1's 31 feet deep.
Yeah.
Well number 2's 42 feet.
They
deep.
dry up in weather, they're not robust by any means.
Yeah.
And if you look at, if you look at the growth, and we've done this before, the growth of the town, and as I sit here and I try to look at a 20-year plan for us here of how we're gonna grow and sustain, that well site is just not.
But I guarantee that if we put a treatment plant on Lancaster Ave, I will definitely be investigating well number 3.
I
So
can't
whether
hear
you
you.
said it or not, I would definitely be.
I can't hear you. Honest to God, I can't hear.
Move closer.
No one that's.
Yeah, so well, if we do a treatment plant on Lancaster Ave, I will definitely investigate turning well number 3 online. I
Sure.
already had that in my head to do that.
But it wasn't included in the pilot study that occurred, right? So we don't have data.
No, it's not functioning.
Right, so-
Correct, but we did do PFAS sampling on it.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Can I say a couple of things about money?
Can't hear you.
Bobby had 2 things she said, and she only
She had
did
one
one.
more, right?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's all right, thanks, sorry.
That's all
We
right.
get excited, there's a lot going on. My apologies.
I haven't gotten to my second one yet, but I just wanted to follow up with what you had said. That it's not a high producing well, and it's got contamination, and it's got all these issues. But we the community doesn't know that. And so looking at all the options, if one of the options is cleaning up well 3, and it costs minimal money and gives even some water, is better than buying it from Lancaster or Shirley. So if we see the bottom line, it's not that great of an idea, it's an option, it's not that great of an idea, but it only costs this. So if we did this option and this option, it would cost X money, it may be less than another option that we might choose. So do you understand where I'm
Absolutely,
going with the
yeah.
whole option issue?
But kind of on that though, well number 5 was put down there to replace well number 3. So I'm not sure how the permitting, if DEP would allow us to do that. So, but
Yeah,
it's
the-
definitely
Something
something
to
I would
look
try.
into.
I definitely will try to do it, yes.
My last point. I did not notice anywhere in the master plan any mention of investigating the lake level studies for Hickory Hills Lake. If the Hickory Hills well is to be opened, that is a very critical point that has been brought up many times. I would not want it to be lost in the master plan.
Actually, it was in writing that it was supposed to be done during the pilot program. We have it in writing from you guys and Ty and Bond. And I understand it got confusing and things got overlooked, but if you're reinitiating things in the master plan, it would be great to put that in there and measure the lake levels for a year as you originally promised to do.
And I've been trying. You know, I spoke to conservation, I wanted to put a pipe in with a logger, you can't put the pipe in the water. So, I just actually, a couple days ago, I spoke to a hydrogeologist, how do we do this? And he's like, you gotta put a staff gauge, you gotta manually go read it and write it down. I was looking for something more
Electronic.
electronic, logging it into the computer, so they wanna, hey, let me go on Lunenburg's website and see what the lake level is. That's what I wanted to do, but from what hydrogeologists tell me, you can't do that.
When we had the meeting at the town hall with Ty and Bond, remember that? It was a while ago.
Yep.
Mr. Bursch was on Zoom that night, I believe, he was on vacation. And, the hydrogeologist that night, who was at that meeting and presented, said that there was a floating thing that you could put in the lake on an anchor. You can go back and listen to the videotape of the meeting, and it would be Bluetoothed into some item in the pump house that would give data. So, I don't know if you can go back to that hydrogeologist.
That's
that-
the one I talked to, so maybe I need to say you mentioned this and get him
Yeah, he
back.
mentioned ways to do it
Okay.
at that town hall meeting, which, you know, we have all the meetings on videotapes, you can always go back and,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yes, by all means noted, and I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, I
I'm
wanna do
curious
that,
myself.
cause no matter what happens on the road, we need
Yeah.
that data.
Absolutely. Mr. Rogers?
There's a lot of stuff that you're gonna have to analyze before you come up with concrete numbers, okay? And from a standpoint of what the water takers can afford is gonna be the real issue, okay? And this cost is gonna be astronomical. So, I don't know how, without grants or financial intervention from the feds or the state, whatever comes out is gonna be huge, and I'm not sure that the good people of the water district will understand that.
You are applying for a grant for this, but
Of course we
this
do.
will be covered by,
Well,
No, we don't know, we're
We
applying.
don't
You're
know.
applying.
Right,
Yeah.
we're applying.
So that's why we're waiting for the grant.
I think we had extended this to everybody, was the understanding that I reached out to the three of you as the representatives, to see if there was stuff on here that was, yes, move forward, let's go, let's do it. Because we don't know exactly how long it's gonna be, even if we get the grant. So, they've heard your concerns,
Right.
how pressing were those concerns, and would you want them to move forward on them now or wait?
So,
Conversations have taken place tonight that with a reoccurring title, community, okay? And I think the only community that has been interviewed or has any interest in this is the community so-called down at Hickory Hills. Have you talked to anybody in Wayland?
not Whalen, but in town, yes,
Where
not
in
on the
town?
lake. No, I'm not gonna give people, in the center of town, in
What do you
neighborhoods
mean
that
you're
are
not gonna
not,
give people's
I'm
names?
not gonna give people's names.
Alright, hold on, Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers.
you're with me, buddy. Right here.
This is crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree, but at the same time, these are public meetings, and boy, I would love that, I'd let the whole town to be here right now.
Yeah. Well, the point is, it's a small number of people that are running this whole show.
Well, I mean, the world is run by those who show up.
Yep.
And I'd like to see more people show up.
Yep.
So, believe me, I understand. All right, we're gonna move on here.
Okay, so we're done with that?
We're done with that. Okay. Commissioner, superintendent, clerk, treasurer, additions.
I think you had, is there old business on it?
I'm just going down the list, boss.
Okay.
Was pilot testing bikinis on
It was
there?
under old
That's
business,
under
so yeah,
old
you can,
business.
yeah,
You can talk about that.
Alright.
I got
That's the
no-
next big,
Well, I just got the Mass Ave job and bikini pilot
Yeah.
test, so, Mass Ave is going pretty good, they did the directional drill today.
I saw them.
We tried to do it, yesterday and it couldn't get through Towns Harbor Road, they were hitting boulders or something. So we had to pull back out, jump across the street, they shot all the way over to Danny Proctor's and, pulled the pipe. Actually, I assume they're done the pipe, they were still doing it after we all left. And, then they're gonna shoot another small one under Danny's driveway.
Yep.
And, so the whole big thing is, how much it's gonna cost, and the guy said, yeah, we can do it for free, so,
Oh,
do a private
yeah.
job, so we're gonna do it. The only difficult thing that we had to absorb the cost on was the fittings that tie to the valve and stuff that will go to Danny Proctor, so to tie to that pipe. There's ways to do it, And the guy's like, a little nervous about it with the pressure. I'm like, I'm not doing something that's not perfect.
I never wanna come back here again.
So the guy's like, we were talking $300 a pop, so I like, put it on my bill.
Yeah,
Send me the
no
bills.
problem.
Sorry, so they're moving along, they're getting close to the primary school.
Yep.
So they're having a tough time, every telephone pole's right there,
Nice.
so the machines under the phone lines, and, it's a tough job, but they're moving along.
Yeah.
And the guy running the pipeway, he's an excellent worker, he doesn't stop, running around, I don't know what language he's speaking. He's speaking English, but I don't
He's got
understand,
some kind of
I don't understand
accent.
word coming out of his mouth, so,
Have them speak louder.
yeah.
My understanding, we've had a couple leaks with the temporary main and so
Yes.
forth. Yeah, and we do our best to publicize when those happen. It is a temporary main, and that's bound to happen, and I appreciate the public's patience when we do have issues down there. I know that you guys have been down there sometimes way off hours. Fixing some
Yeah,
of that
Terry
stuff.
got a call,
Two,
So-
is there 2 in the morning?
2 in the morning, got called, and they had it repaired by 5:45.
Yeah,
And I'm like, get that thing going, cause we.
Before the
people
morning,
gotta-
yeah.
We're gonna get the showers.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I wanna let the public know, to thank them for their patience and understanding, but it's not an easy project, and these things arise, and the reason we're doing it is so that we can reduce the amount of interruptions.
I thought that post was
Yeah.
very good,
Yeah,
explaining a
thought
little
that
bit to
post
the
up
people.
just-
Yeah,
We've had a mix, we've had some people totally supporting us, like, we get it, you know, yes, this is inconvenient, but man, this is better than
yeah,
the
no,
multiple breaks
right.
every year that they have, so, and then we've got other people that just like to go on Facebook, so. But no, I think overall, everybody's been pretty positive, you know, reaching out,
Yep.
I
supportive.
also wanna applaud your staff, our staff. They've been doing a
Yeah.
great job, cause this is, above and beyond their normal, and, they've been rolling with all the punches
Yeah.
and taking care
Yeah.
of things, and every time I drive by, it seems like a decent
agree.
project.
Yeah. There's a
Every
lot of
guy's
moving
doing a
parts
nice
to this.
job, so.
Yeah, and it's good for, we got some newer guys
Yeah.
that are seeing how to do this stuff, so they're learning.
Yeah.
Learning the process, then everything we do the GPS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Every
Yeah.
corporation, even sewer, everything we
Oh,
find.
awesome.
Yeah,
If we
Awesome.
find something, we beam it up.
That's great.
So,
Nice.
Because when you do it, you turn it on, you got it for an hour.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
You know,
tell
you
them, you got an hour,
you better.
you
Get everything, you go get everything.
catch basin, go get everything.
That's
So
awesome.
Yeah.
it's fun.
All right.
So, but it's going good, so hopefully,
Do they have a,
couple more weeks.
do they have a rough finish time, have they thought about
The
it?
contract, is, I think it was October
Yeah.
4th.
Yeah.
So
They seem
we're
to
gonna
be on schedule, I remember looking back at that, I mean, a little off here and there, but.
So we're gonna be close, we had a meeting last week, and, we think it's gonna be close, and maybe a couple weeks extension, so.
Okay.
Great job.
Okay, so the only other thing I had was the heating well, I just got an email today from DEP that it's authorized to move ahead and start continuing with the testing. The whole problem was the brine, because that's the byproduct of the hardness removal. So DEP, their big concern was the hardness is gonna plug up the filter.
Okay.
So they didn't think we'd get accurate data. So that's kind of why DEP still thinks we're not doing it correctly, but they're gonna allow us to go and do it. So they do have, they know Lunenburg, they know when the line's plugged up. It was 2 weeks after the well went online where all the high pressure pumps failed, because I had to apply for a permit to move the injection point. And then, I was kind of surprised, kind of tied to the sanitary survey, that they knew the date of when that line was actually so plugged up we couldn't even pump water through it. So, their concern is that the same thing is going to happen to that plant, because when you put the water through granular activated carbon, it gives a pH increase.
Okay.
So this stuff, when that Keening's was first turned on, I could take my finger, put it in the sodium hydroxide, and touch it in the water, you would immediately see white dust come off. So it's instant oxidation of the, whatever the.
Precipitation.
Precipitation. So that's what DEP's concern is. So anyway, so they're gonna start it and see how it goes. So the big thing with that one, I think it was, the last meeting, 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of waste per week for that well, when it's full setup. So that's where.
Huge
And,
one out
yeah, so
costs.
they, I understand the challenge, cause do you treat the water before it goes through the PFAS cycle?
Right.
If you do, then all of your waste still has PFAS in it, so how do you get rid of the waste? So when you're talking about, I thought I read that in more of hundreds of thousands of gallons.
This email's been going on for so long, because they keep fighting back and forth.
When I read it, and the thought of,
Well, that's why-
you take the hardness out of the water, but the PFAS is still in it. And in that process, you have a byproduct. So now you have a byproduct that has PFAS in it. How do you get rid of that?
You have to
Then-
send it
then-
up and have it burned.
Then the challenge is, if you send it through the PFAS
PFAS, it's
filter
better.
first, is it going to
Clog all that.
clog the PFAS filter before it gets to the hardness removal? So that, I guess in a nutshell, is what they're dealing with. And, you know, like you said, that's how they're gonna treat. So, yeah.
So that's what the pilot test.
That's what pilot tests are for,
Yeah.
yeah. And they figure it out.
So, but the hardness is, it's probably leading to be more of a bear to deal with than the iron and manganese. So,
We would like to thank you very much for inviting us, and thank you for spending the time talking with us. That's very nice of you, very open of you, and we appreciate the reach out. I know it's frustrating sometimes when you have all these different ideas coming together, but we really do appreciate it, and we, thank you.
There's no frustration.
There's always
no,
frustration now.
this
I am-
is easier,
yeah.
even though we might have had some moments that got a little steamy. This is better than having a battle at a public meeting or Facebook stuff, which,
I am dead serious, and I mean that when I say that. I am more than glad for you guys to come in and let's just talk through human words here and figure out the best way to approach this.
That's why we're here.
Period. I'm glad you come in.
And
Don't get me wrong, it makes my night a little bit, more exciting, but I don't care. I'd rather go through it now than later on in the 11th hour. If we attack this thing the next time, I am hoping that it's a smooth process because we've ironed out and we've addressed any concerns and bumps, and hopefully we can find a solution for Lunenburg and to push it forward. The only way we're gonna do that is if we keep talking and keep moving forward with this
And
stuff.
I appreciate you putting back into your report that you're going to apply for a grant for some of the things we talked about tonight. Appreciate that very much.
Is there anything else?
I have nothing.
okay, was there anything else on that?
Public comment, but I'm gonna say that we covered.
I think we covered that.
I think we're.
I would make a motion to adjourn there, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
All right.
I gotta go.